Hey everybody, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Flash episode 15 video. Careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. Things got crazy so fast, so I'll try to explain what's going on, but you kind of see how this is moving. The episode next week is into the Speed Force, so now we have the reason for why Barry needs to travel in there. But you kind of see how characters learn information, where most of us probably suspected that Savitar was stuck in the Speed Force way long time ago. So there's a new round of the Flash Ring giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. So a whole bunch of comic book stuff. I'll try to explain the concepts in the Speed Force, Savitar, in the comics as we go along. So number 10, the team is training Wally to save Iris, and it's kind of morbid because they're trying to replicate the exact scene of Iris's death. So Barry's pretending to be Savitar, killing Iris, who's being played by Jesse Quick, and even though they're playing this really hopeful music, and they're all kind of really excited because Wally's actually doing really good, is that it's just completely nuts. You have to remember that Wally is still Kid Flash, he's really still a kid inside, and nowhere else do you see that than when he sees his mother later in the episode. Like, he really just needs someone to balance him out the way his mother could, but she's not around anymore, so he's completely spinning out of control. As number 9, he starts to hallucinate Savitar. So no big deal, we get an answer for what happened last week. He didn't tell anybody about it, so I guess he just went and got Big Belly Burger, then came back and finished that movie with Jesse Quick. Can you just imagine the weird behavior he tried to explain away when he came back that night? But they did this weird thing in the episode with the way they presented Savitar as Wally's hallucination, so nobody else could see him. Even Barry couldn't see him when he was getting knocked around. So it seems like he did have a connection with Wally. He really was knocking him around. It wasn't just Wally imagining that, and it has something to do with the way Wally got his powers from the Philosopher's Stone through Savitar. I'm the one that gave you these powers, so I guess that gave them some extra level of connection that someone like Barry does not have with Savitar, even though Savitar is completely obsessed with him. You're the one that put me in here, Barry Allen, your future self. So number 8, Barry speaks to him for the first time, and they start to tease out the idea of the prison that he's trapped in, an endless void of time and energy. So it takes them a while to get there, but they eventually figure out that it is the Speed Force that he's stuck in, even though Savitar himself didn't say that. But here's the thing, this is really cool, because this first encounter they have with Savitar in the episode, he dumps all this information on them. From my perspective, you're the big bad. You're selfish. You're cruel. So that means that Barry does something crazy. He says that they'll meet relatively shortly. He could be talking about the end of the episode when Savitar finally manifests in the real world, but he also makes it sound like Barry was there when he became a speedster. But the way Savitar was talking about himself, the way he got powers, was really weird, because technically, by Jay Garrick's explanation, he's the first speedster to be granted speed, but that would make him way older than any of these characters and have been around for a much longer time. But he calls himself the future, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, the timeline doesn't completely make sense, so maybe they changed their minds on some stuff. We'll have to wait for some more information. And in the comics, Savitar was just a regular Cold War pilot, but still became one of the earliest speedsters to be granted speed. But the way Savitar talks about Barry makes it sound like they have a much more intimate relationship in history. Like, he's not just somebody from the other side of the world that got speed, became a villain, and Barry took down. It seems way more complicated than that. And by this explanation, him being stuck in the Speed Force, they've already hit that comic book storyline. So in the comics, Savitar doesn't start out trapped in the Speed Force. He starts out just like a normal person who has speed, who winds up getting stuck in there by Wally West, who defeats him after he tries to take down his entire team. He tries to steal the Speed Force from everyone. Wally ultimately defeats him, but then later, after Barry Allen had come back during Flash Rebirth, Savitar escapes the Speed Force and then completely disintegrates as part of a different storyline. So they're mixing and matching some Barry Allen, Wally West era stuff, but eventually they learn number 6, the method of Savitar's return is that the Philosopher's Stone isn't completely gone, and that sort of cues up the other acolytes. He still has followers that are on the loose, worshipping some creepy statue up in the park, and it all seems like a setup that Savitar has engineered so that they'll get the box, they'll find the stone, and then the stone will be thrown into the Speed Force. So even though Savitar was manipulating them at every step through this episode, like manipulating things so that Wally would steal the stone and throw it into the Speed Force, he's been doing it ever since Flashpoint started. So number 5, Wally vibing into the future so that he can see Iris's death. Also, big WTF sort of sets off a couple other plot lines like Barry and Iris breaking off their engagement, and we learn why Wally isn't there in that moment, because if Barry's training him to save Iris, why wouldn't he be there in the future vision? Well, now we know, because he's stuck in the Speed Force. And how crazy was it that Cisco was able to turn on a dime and just vibe them right there? Like, here you go. It's almost like turning a TV to a different station. Like, oh, let's turn to the station where Iris gets skewered by Savitar. Let's check that out again. It'll be no big deal. Number 4, we learn more of the prophecy. Caitlyn is the one that betrayed the team, so it seems like things are playing out the way Savitar said they would, even though I'm expecting a couple twists down the road, because she kept a piece of the stone to try and get rid of her powers, but can't figure it out, and while it shatters her relationship with Julian, it also kind of does the same thing for everyone else in the episode. Like, Barry and Iris are freaking out, Jesse and Wally are freaking out, so it's almost like all the relationships in the episode, whether they're friends or they're girlfriend, boyfriend, are all just completely blowing apart at the seams. We gotta talk about Caitlyn though. How crazy off the rails do you think that she's gone? She's so positive that she is going to go full-blown Killer Frost and either hurt or kill her friends. So even though you understand why she kept that piece, why she's so desperate, it's still a huge WTF twist. So she'll be living with that regret for the rest of the season, but I'll be interested to see how the show tries to redeem her if it's able to do so. Like, even if she's eventually going to become Killer Frost no matter what, if she'll be able to use her powers for good. I think it's a crazy assumption that just because she becomes Killer Frost and gets those powers, she can't use them in a good way. Continuing the crazy train, number 3, Wally goes completely off the rails, hallucinating his mother as Savitar, and it goes from kind of sweet and crazy, like, oh my god, Jesse Quick definitely can't see her, you're scaring me, Wally, to really creepy, where they have her start to taunt Wally. So what's happening here is that Savitar is goading him to get him to throw the piece into the Speed Force. That's why he's doing this. He's not just doing this to get Wally to crap his pants. He's manipulating him so that he can get sucked into the Speed Force and replace Savitar. By number 2, another relationship blowing apart at the seams, Iris breaks off the engagement with Barry, predictably because of what happened in the episode. But if you felt like their engagement was really quick, like I know they get married in the comics eventually, that leads to Bart Allen, their grandson, so all good things come from them getting married eventually, but they're so young. So my barometer on their whole relationship is really based on Smallville experience. Like, you know they'll end up together, Lois and Clark, they belong together, totally get it, but it just push it off into the future. You don't have to rush to that finish line right away. But we learned the whole reason is just because Barry was trying to change the future. They're not married in the future, so if they get married, maybe that's one more thing that'll help save Iris. Which, as Iris explains, is a completely terrible reason to get married. So they're still together, like they didn't break up. It's just that they're not going to be getting married anytime soon. But you guys can let me know, like, do you think they're going to push that off to like the final season of the show? Because it would be crazy for them to get married this soon. We're only in season 3, maybe like season 7 or 8 or whatever the final season of the show is. But my number 1, this is so great. So the final 15 minutes of the episode was just one crazy thing leading to another domino, knocking down to this giant explosion of WTF. So Wally takes the stone, turns his communicator off, and plays into Savitar's hand, not knowing that throwing the stone into the Speed Force is giving Savitar what he wants. So this is all predicated on the idea that they didn't know where exactly Savitar was. They still don't really understand how the Speed Force works. Barry knows he was stuck in there. There are beings that exist that he was able to talk to, but that's basically it. So there's a lot of Speed Force lore from the comics that they just haven't got to on the show yet, that they'll get to eventually this season and obviously in future seasons. There's so many things about the Speed Force that they change even in the brand new Rebirth comics that they could do later on that it's going to be really cool. So as we get to stuff, I'll try to explain it whenever they do big concepts. But the whole thing here is that Wally gets sucked in, and it's almost exactly like when Barry got sucked into the Speed Force. He sort of disintegrates, and his costume is left in tatters. It's kind of a reverse homage to Crisis on Infinite Earths, and this panel here with Wally West holding Barry Allen's costume after he got sucked into the Speed Force. So it all comes back around to the comics, but you guys can let me know, What do you think is going on with Savitar? They got a piece of his armor, so they'll use it to learn more about him, but Barry wasn't able to rip his mask off, so they haven't revealed who he is exactly. They haven't had their Arrow moment where they revealed the big bad, but I feel like this was a great episode. There were a couple moments where it lagged a little bit, but the final 15 minutes were just so solid. In that fight between him and Barry, I feel like those types of CG scenes always work a lot better. It feels like they spend a lot more time making that much crazier. So the thing is though, is that even though Savitar is supposed to be the god of speed, Barry was able to get a couple really good punches in, meaning that there is a chance for him to fight them. But first he has to find out what's going on with Wally, and then we have to learn what the will of the Speed Force is, why it's allowing all of this to happen, because we have the time wraiths. There are things that the Speed Force itself can do to act against things that it thinks aren't supposed to exist. So remember, Barry Allen, very important for the evolution of Savitar. There's a lot they haven't explained yet. So let's try and figure this out in the comments. But what's going to happen next is I have a new Game of Thrones video. They revealed a new character, so I'll post a video for that. There might be a new Wonder Woman trailer tomorrow. They said it's going to happen sometime this week, probably because King Khan is dropping. So whenever that happens, I will totally do a video for it. But congratulations to this week's Flash Ring giveaway winner, Jeremy Hall. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. So I will see you guys when I post that Game of Thrones video in the morning. While you wait for that, you can click here for brand new Game of Thrones, and you can click here for that musical crossover episode trailer. Thank you so much for watching. Let's high five. I'll see you guys in the next video.